Coming up next on At Your Service, we'll be discussing how to support students and families experiencing homelessness. Stay tuned. Today on At Your Service, we'll be discussing how to support students and families experiencing homelessness. Welcome. I'd like to introduce today Mr. Ryan Voegtlin, the Director of Student Service, and he is my new co-host. So
awesome. Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to be on board.
I'm very excited to have you. So thank you, ladies, for being here today. And can you share a little bit about yourselves to the viewing audience?
Sure. My name is Jennifer Laque. I'm currently the Homeless Education Liaison for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I was a pupil personnel worker for the last 4 years. Homeless Education Liaison is a PPW role as well. Prior to that, I was an elementary school counselor.
Thanks, Jen.
Hello. My name is Allison Mathews, and I'm currently a pupil personnel worker. I have the Broadneck feeder system, which includes 8 schools that I'm in charge of as a pupil personnel worker. Prior to that, I was a school counselor, and I was also an English teacher before I was a school counselor.
Well, thank you, Allison and Jen, for being here. Can you just real quick explain to the viewing audience what a pupil personnel worker is before we get started?
Sure. Allison, do you want to take the lead on that?
Sure. So we're sort of the bridge between the families and the schoolhouse. We go out and we help students that are experiencing attendance issues. We go out to the houses and try to help get the child back in school and see what's going on. We also help students that are experiencing homelessness. We make sure that they have an easy entry into their new school when they transfer from another school. We make sure that they get into the school for their appointment and that they have everything they need to be successful.
Okay, awesome. We're going to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. Good. So can you all tell us what is the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Assistance Act, and then how does a student meet the criteria for homelessness under this law?
So the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Act authorizes the Federal Education Homeless Youth Program, and that is the primary piece of federal legislation that supports the education of homeless children and youth in our schools. And so the role that pupil personnel workers have is they support those enrollments for our homeless students. And so McKinney-Vento defines homelessness as a student who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime resident. And so when we look at that, there's quite a few things that fall under that. One of the things that we see often here in AACPS is our families being doubled up. And so one might not think that that is homelessness, but it really does depend on how it is that family came to be in that situation. And so that's where the pupil personnel workers take such a huge part in that, because they're able to then have those conversations with the families, determine how it is that they came to be in their current situation, and then provide those supports. So for example, if someone were evicted from their home and they had nowhere else to go, maybe a friend or a family member then invites them in their home so that they have a place to be. Maybe they're all staying in one room, it's crowded. They can be asked to leave at any time without any legal recourse on their own to be able to stay. Then those are really not stable situations. And McKinney-Vento does define that as homelessness. We also define homelessness as families living in shelters, hotels, if our families are living in cars, or other situations that aren't not quite adequate. We do enroll those students under McKinney-Vento and under homelessness as well. So students that are enrolled as McKinney-Vento have rights, and that again is another very important role of the pupil personnel worker, to share those rights with the family so they understand the supports that are available to them. And some of those rights, students certainly have the right to remain, we call it school of origin, and then geographical location. So let's say a family was evicted from their home and they lived in the school zone B. And now they have to go move in with a family member over here in another school zone. They do have the right to continue in their school of origin where they were, prior to being homeless. And so one of the things that we can do, and with the support of the pupil personnel worker, is to work to provide that transportation for that student to continue at that school of origin if it is in the best interest for that student. And that oftentimes is a conversation with the family, sometimes with that student and the school staff. But then the student also does have the right to enroll in their new geographical location. So maybe they are now living with a friend in another school area. They do have the right then to enroll in that school as well. So we do afford them that right. Students and families, we do support under free and reduced lunch. So any student that's enrolled under McKinney-Vento does automatically get free and reduced lunch support. And we do waive fees for students so that they can participate fully in their education.
Thank you.
So one of the things you discussed was, the enrollment process. And so what are certain rights? I know you had talked a little bit about free and reduced, but what about the enrollment rights when you have a family that is experiencing homelessness? How does that enrollment piece work that's different than students that are let's say, that are not experiencing homelessness?
Okay. I can answer that.
Go ahead, Helen.
So when I get a call from one of the enrollment secretaries that a family has called and they have mentioned that they were evicted or that they have new housing, I meet the family. I come to the school and meet the family, and I talk to them about what their situation is. Sometimes they come and they don't have all their paperwork because sometimes they had to flee quickly and they didn't get a chance to pack everything up. So I help them get the paperwork that's needed, or if they need a little bit more time, we give them some extra time to get the paperwork. Okay. They also, I help them fill out the registration paperwork because they don't have all the documents that some other families may have, and we work to get them in school as quickly as possible. I also help them if they need any school supplies right away, because when I'm meeting with the family, I can hear what they need and what they don't have that they'll need the first day of school, so I make sure to get that for them as well.
And we always aim to have our homeless families enroll within 24 hours. So facilitating that conversation with the PPW, connecting with the school, and really trying to make sure that student then is in that school seat within 24 hours of us being aware that the student is enrolled as homeless. And like Allie is saying, that we do, if they come without documents, that's okay. We understand, their situation, and we're looking to enroll them quickly, and we don't want there to be any barriers to that enrollment.
Because sometimes by the time they actually call the school, sometimes there's been days previous to that they've been out of their old school, and the families have been trying to kind of get things together and figure out where they're going to be. So we don't want them to miss any more school than they have to. So we get them in right away, which is really a great thing.
It is, it is.
So you talked a little bit about eviction, but for the viewing audience, we've had incidents that have happened in our county, let's say fires. Would that then qualify a family? Even if they, let's say, moved in with their brother or sister, but is it just multiple, are there exceptions? And
absolutely. If there's a fire, if there's a natural disaster, those families all fall under McKinney-Vento.
Okay.
And so we would be enrolling them as homeless so that they can then have those afforded rights to them. And so our enrollment process, identifying homeless families sometimes can be a challenge. Sometimes families don't realize that they meet the criteria for McKinney-Vento. And so we do try to get that out there in a variety of ways. One of the things we ask is for all schools to have the rights posted in the front offices so that they can see what their rights are. They can read through, I do qualify as that. And sometimes when a family is going to do an enrollment, and our county requires residency documents, and then we realize that it's challenging for this family to provide those residency documents, and that then starts the registrar to question why can't they get the residency documents. There's more conversation, and then it sparks the thought, this family could be experiencing homelessness and may fall under McKinney-Vento, and that's when they would then connect with their PPW or their school counselor to reach out to their PPW. One of the things on our SR1 cards, and that is an enrollment document that we use, at the top it does say, is this due to loss of permanent housing? And if a family checks yes at the top, then the enrollment secretary knows, let's look a little bit further, let's connect with the PPW.
Right. It's so important to connect with the PPW because when we get involved, we kind of take over and ask the right questions and help with the enrollment. If we're not involved right away, this family could possibly have to explain their situation over and over again to different people at the school.
Right.
So getting the PPW involved streamlines the support and the resources.
And if a family becomes, if they become homeless but then they gain stable housing in the middle of a school year, what kind of rights do they have in terms of finishing out that school year for their child?
Right. So once you're enrolled under McKinney-Vento and homeless, you hold those rights till the end of the school year.
Okay.
So if the family was enrolled as homeless in August and now in December they've had the great fortune of holding a lease and now they're stably housed, they do continue to have the McKinney-Vento rights till the end of the school year.
Gotcha.
So what we do at the end of each school year, PPWs take a look at those students that are identified as McKinney-Vento, and they determine and connect with each of those families to determine if they're still meeting the criteria for McKinney-Vento for the coming school year, or if now they are housed and they're going to just be enrolling with the regular documents like all the students do. So there is that process, but to answer your question, yes, they have those rights for that entire school year.
And they can elect to go to their new school, but they have the right to stay where they were currently attending. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes till our little mid-break, but I'd like to ask, how many students and families in Anne Arundel County are currently experiencing homelessness?
So right now we have 886 families enrolled under McKinney-Vento. Of those families, we've probably had 111 families in and out of hotels here. So finding affordable housing is really challenging. And sometimes our families, what they can do, the best they can do for their children then is to stay in hotels. And so we have families that are coming in and out of hotels. And then we've had, I believe we're at about, 59 families that have been in and out of shelter. We have 2 shelters in Anne Arundel County that house our families, Sarah's House and Lighthouse Shelter. So our families are in and out of those shelters as well. Last year in Anne Arundel County, we had 1,260 families enrolled as homeless, and about, I think it was about 1,000 of those families were in those doubled up or those shared housing situations. So oftentimes, large majority of our families are in those shared housing situations, but we do have families certainly in hotels and in shelters. And we do try to work very closely with the shelters here in Sarah's House and Lighthouse. We have good relationships with the shelters.
Would you say there's a larger number of elementary, middle, or high school, or is it pretty evenly split within those levels?
I would say it's pretty evenly split within those levels. One of the unique populations we see at the older age are our unaccompanied homeless youth. And so those are our older youth, 16, 17-year-old that are not with a custodial guardian and they're just unaccompanied. Maybe their friends allowing them to sleep on their couch, or an aunt has let them come stay with them in a room in their home, but really no one providing that parental role for them. And so we're seeing that number increase. I think we're maybe at about in the 40s for our unaccompanied homeless youth at this time. And so that's definitely a unique population that we really work to support.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Porter. Anne Arundel County Public Schools Department of Transportation is raising the level of awareness for the safety of your children as we transport them to and from school. When a school bus stops to load students, as a driver, this is what you will see. At 150 feet, the bus will activate hazard lights. At 100 feet, the bus driver will activate the amber lights. They will start slowing down. At 10 feet before the bus stops, they will turn on the red bus lights. Their stop sign will come out, and students will begin to load. Once all students are on board safely, the bus driver will turn off red lights and move forward. At this time, it is safe for the motorist to resume movement.
Welcome back to At Your Service. Thank you for joining us.
So you all had talked about the supports that students who are enrolled under McKinney-Vento have. Can you talk about some additional supports that may not be available to other students that these students may have access to?
One of the things that our students experiencing homeless have access to is an academic support program. So we have funds through a grant where we are able to provide students that are experiencing homelessness with that one-on-one academic support. And we can use those funds to pay a teacher to provide that direct support to a student experiencing homelessness. And so the school counselor, the PPW may identify that there's a student in need because certainly these students are transient and we want to make sure that they're being able to be as successful as they can, and this program can provide that to them. So the counselor, the PPW may identify a student, and then there may be a teacher that says, yes, I want to provide that support to this student. And so we can pay for that teacher to provide that direct support to them, as well as we have an option of transporting that student from that academic support scenario. So from the school, after school hours, and so we tap into those funds as well. We do have funds available to provide money for field trips for our students to participate fully in that. We have funds available to provide for the parent to attend a conference of their students so that, again, they can be a full participant in the child's education. We do have a pot of discretionary funds that we can use to purchase certain things, maybe dress clothing. We've purchased for quite a few students. We've purchased a clarinet so that a student could participate in band, certainly paying for those field trips. And we also have a mentor program that we use to support our unaccompanied homeless youth.
Wow, that's enlightening to hear all the different.
That's right.
It's really about access.
It is.
And equity.
And so we tell our PPWs and those folks that are in the schools, if there's something that a student experiencing homelessness needs, reach out to us. Let's see what we can do. Let's look at the funds that we have available and let's see if we can make it happen. And we always try to meet that need.
That's fantastic. So you talked a little bit about mentoring, so let's talk about a mentorship program that's available to students in Anne Arundel County that are experiencing homeless.
Yeah,
sure.
Alan, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we have a program called the Power of One Mentoring Program, and we have this program for juniors and seniors that are in that category considered unaccompanied youth. So that means they're living with someone other than a parental guardian. Our program exists to try to help them meet up with some post-secondary goals, career paths, or possibly college and post-secondary education. So we match students up with a one-on-one mentor, and the mentors are people that are counselors or pupil personnel workers or social workers in our school system. They meet one-on-one with their mentee, and they work through lots of different modules about how to become ready for college, what to do to prepare for college.
Most recently, we had someone from the community college come and help our unaccompanied homeless youth fill out the FAFSA form. Because in the state of Maryland, if you are an unaccompanied homeless youth and you go to a state college or university, you receive free tuition. And so that's really important information for these kids to know, and they may not know that. And so we're really trying to get that information out there, because they will then have that opportunity to seek that post-secondary option. And so our program is really about building those relationships, and we're using our AACPS employees to do that. With the support of our grant funds, we're able to put this program in place. And we have seen really excellent results. Last year, we had 18 students in the program, and 11 of them had improved attendance, as well as we had a large chunk of them with improved academics. So we're pretty proud of the program, and we're still definitely a work in progress, but we've seen some really great results.
We have.
And it's probably the one thing that Allie and I love doing the most.
I can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell. So I know that the students for the Power One Mentor Program also go on and they'll do some Naviance work as well with their mentor, their mentee. And so it really seems to be growing this year. This is what, year?
So we're in year 3.
Okay.
It was a pilot. Our first year was just a pilot program. And then I came on board last year with Allie, where we expanded it to more schools. And now we're in our 3rd year. We are at about 18 working mentor-mentee relationships now. And certainly each one of them are very unique in how they're working together. But yep, so they do some college exploration. Some of the students may not be interested in that post-secondary college, so we do a workshop for our mentors to learn about other options that they can discuss with their mentee. So we're not always saying that you have to go to that 4-year college. Here's an apprenticeship option, and sort of allowing our mentors or giving our mentors that information so that they can then relay that to their mentee as well.
Fantastic.
What have the some of the mentees, have they communicated to you all in terms of the benefits of the mentoring program, or just some things that they've gotten from it?
Yeah.
Have they talked about that?
Yes.
I would definitely say so. I think being able to develop that one-on-one relationship and really getting to know their student has been beneficial and powerful, and being able to direct a student who doesn't have that parental guardian to kind of be that guide, and here now they're able to be that person for them, and that's a pretty powerful relationship to have, and knowing that they can count on that person, that they're going to show up for that person, and I think that says a lot.
Each year we invite the mentees and mentors to come together to go to the Broadneck College Fair, which is a huge college fair, and when the kids, both years that we've done this now, the kids have been a little nervous about going into that big, huge auditorium and walking up to all those different college reps. But when we do the evaluation at the end, the most powerful thing they say is that having that mentor with them to approach the table and shake a hand and ask the right questions, they felt so much more confident going through that college fair. So I thought that was a really great thing.
Yeah. It's that wonderful, because even though they're high school, they're children.
Right.
They're adolescents and they're kind of on their own, and they have their own struggles. But having somebody, even if you haven't been priorly exposed to a college fair where there's 100 colleges, it can be pretty intimidating.
It can be.
So I think that is that connection is really is vital for our students, and just to help support them to that post-secondary option.
That's right. And then someone just to be able to continue to have that conversation with that has went to the college fair, experienced it with you, and now you can just continue to have that conversation. For these kids who don't have that adult that they can have those back and forth with, it's a really good thing.
So it's a good confidence booster.
It
a
is.
Good,
Yes.
Just push and support, and have someone to kind of help them, guide them through that process.
Right.
Awesome. Can you all tell us about some of the other community outreaches that you've done, or any connections you have with other organizations? I know there was a homeless resource day that the county does in October.
Yep.
Can you tell about some of those initiatives?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to work with Justin Byler, who is the homeless coordinator for the Department of Social Services for Anne Arundel County. And so he is an excellent resource for myself as well as the PPWs in the field. And most recently he did come to our department meeting to talk with the PPWs about homelessness here in Anne Arundel County, but also the new coordinated entry process. And that is, how does a family that is seeking shelter, how do they get that shelter? And so he was able to share with us the new process for families to do that. And basically what it is our families can call any of our shelters, Sarah's House, Lighthouse, Department of Social Services, and our Warm Line, and they can say, I'm seeking shelter, I need support, and they are put on the shelter list. And Justin was able to really talk with our PPWs about that process, so now they have that information. So when the family says to them, I'm seeking shelter, our PPWs are knowledgeable about that process and can relay that. Absolutely.
It's that communication.
It is, yes. Right. And he also was able to talk about rapid rehousing. So sometimes our families that are experiencing homelessness, they just need a little bit of support. They may have the finances to get themselves in a home. They just may not be able to put down that security deposit. So there are some other programs out there where they can be connected with housing, and so Justin was able to give us the Rapid Rehousing Program contacts, names, so then again when our PPWs are meeting with those families, if through their conversation they realize this may be a family that would be a good connection for a Rapid Rehousing Program, they can reach out and make contact with those right folks.
Because sometimes some of the families that I work with, you know, when they try to get a new apartment or rental, they need first month and last month and a security deposit.
It's expensive.
And that is very expensive, you know, for everyone.
We have a close relationship with the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families. They do have a shelter diversion program and a prevention program run through the United Way, and so that is specific to our Meade area, our North County area, and some of our Arundel areas. So that program, they can provide security deposits for families to stay housed, or if there is, you know, they're one bill away from being evicted, maybe they can't pay their electric bill, and that's going to cause them to be evicted. So that would be the shelter diversion. They would provide those funds to them so they can pay that electric bill, so now they can pay their rent. And so that's a program that we have with the Partnership. I also have the opportunity to sit on the Homeless Coalition with community agencies from Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, where we have a lot of conversation about supporting homelessness in the county, and it's great to be a part of that conversation, be able to hear what's happening, bring that information back, and then provide that input from the youth perspective. And youth homelessness has been a very important topic as well. And Anne Arundel County participated in the Youth Reach survey the last few years, where that's a survey that's given directly to unaccompanied homeless youth. And it's helping us to determine how we can support the unaccompanied homeless youth, not just in Anne Arundel County, but in the state of Maryland. And so I have the opportunity to sit on the youth committee, and that is through the Partnership as well, and really looking to see what kind of resources we can bring to this population of students.
So you have about another minute.
Okay.
And is there anything that you would like, when we think about the viewing audience, anything that you need? Because there are people out there that are always willing to help. That how you can help students and families in Anne Arundel County experiencing homeless, or
even how you would access your pupil personnel worker at school, just if you were a family that needed that support.
Absolutely. So one, access to your PPW. Our schools know who's the PPW assigned to them, and so that would just be a call to the school and asking the name of that PPW, so that then they can reach out and connect with them. When we talk about what we might need for our students, we are fortunate to work with our 21st Century Education Nonprofit Foundation, and through 21st Century we do have a pot of funds where people can donate to that nonprofit for students and families experiencing homelessness. So you can access that on our AACPS website. Go to the 21st Century Foundation, click on Students and Families Experiencing Homelessness, and we will take any donation that you're willing to provide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ms. Laque and Ms. Mathews. We really appreciate your time and for this informative discussion. And we'd like to thank the viewers also at home. And this has been At Your Service. Thank you.
The new kindergarten, first, and second grade curriculums are designed to engage students in a variety of learning opportunities that involve collaboration, conversation, and creativity. One learning block that is devoted to movement and healthy minds and bodies supports a cooperative classroom and a feeling of connectedness. In Move, 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 Healthy Minds and Bodies, activities support oral language development and prepare the brain for new information. The use of repetition and movement offers an opportunity to review content across various learning blocks. The positive effects of physical activity on the young brain provides a focus and a readiness to learn.
Ready?
Ask your child how Move, Move, Move helped them learn today.
Boom! Run! Excellent, boys and girls.